Have you ever wondered why a man's greatest fear of intimacy often hides the seed of his deepest desire? Most women assume that when he withdraws, when his eyes turn distant or his voice grows cold, he has lost interest. Yet the paradox is this: what you interpret as rejection may actually be his unconscious trembling on the threshold of passion. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious does not simply oppose consciousness but completes it, and nowhere is this more evident than in the fragile dance between male fear and female allure. Fear and desire are not opposites, they are twin flames born from the same psychic fire. When a man recoils, he is not always retreating from you, sometimes he is recoiling from himself, from the shadows within that he has not yet dared to face. He sees in you the mirror of his own hidden archetypes, the anima that Jung described as both muse and tormentor, the unseen feminine within him that whispers truths he has silenced. And when you, as a woman, embody certain archetypal energies with quiet sovereignty, you do not plead with his fear to vanish, you transmute it into longing. His dread of losing control becomes fascination with your unshakable essence. His instinct to flee becomes the compulsion to return. Imagine the archetype of the huntress, steady in her gaze, her arrows aligned with purpose. To the ordinary man, she seems intimidating, too free to be possessed. His fear whispers, "If she does not need me, what place do I hold?" Yet beneath that tremor lies desire, for what frightens him most is also what seduces him: her refusal to collapse, her capacity to choose rather than beg. When you channel this archetype, you stir his primal recognition that the woman before him cannot be conquered, only courted. In that tension, his fear of insignificance, his awe of your autonomy, his guarded heart cracks open into desire. Consider the archetype of the lover, not in her superficial allure but in her depth of presence. Many women believe that desire is won by constant giving, by pouring themselves out until empty. Yet the true lover archetype reveals a subtler mystery: desire is born in resonance, not sacrifice. When you meet him with a presence that is rich, embodied, and whole, his fear of intimacy, his terror of being seen, meets its match. For he cannot escape the gaze that reflects him, not as a role he plays, but as the man he secretly longs to become. His fear begins to dissolve into passion precisely because you do not chase it away, you invite it closer, until his resistance softens into surrender. Some women mistake a man's withdrawal as the end of connection. They panic, they plead, they shrink themselves to fit into his shadow. But this only feeds his fear, convincing him that love is a cage. The alchemy lies in holding the paradox: you allow his fear, yet you embody a truth larger than his panic. Jung spoke of individuation as the path of integrating light and shadow, and the woman who walks this path does not attempt to erase his fear. Instead, she reveals, by her own presence, that fear and passion are but masks of the same God. And so his retreat becomes pursuit, his hesitation becomes hunger. Picture this: a man stands before a woman who neither chases nor condemns. She does not explain herself endlessly. She does not soothe his every tremor. She simply embodies her archetype with quiet certainty: the queen who does not beg for loyalty, the huntress who does not apologize for freedom. The quiet tension between fear and desire is rarely a straight path, it twists like a serpent through the hidden corridors of the psyche. When a man encounters a woman who radiates archetypal depth, he is forced to meet parts of himself he has long kept locked away. Jung described this confrontation as a meeting with the shadow, the collection of instincts, shames, and forbidden impulses the ego would rather deny. Yet in that denial lives a strange magnetism. The shadow both repels and seduces, and when you, as a woman, embody your own integrated shadow, you awaken his. It is a dangerous invitation, and it is precisely this danger that transforms his trembling into hunger. Picture the magician archetype, cloaked not in tricks but in insight. She is the alchemist of emotion, the one who turns leaden fears into golden revelations. To stand near her is to feel that the invisible is suddenly visible. She does not explain her mystery, she simply is. When a man senses this, his rational defenses fracture. He begins to wonder if the very dread he feels in her presence is the signal of something sacred, something he must follow despite the tremor in his chest. What he calls fear is often his own longing to be undone, to dissolve the barriers he has built against intimacy. This is why the magician woman speaks little yet communicates volumes. A single glance becomes a question he cannot answer. A brief silence becomes a mirror in which he sees the chaos he has avoided. You, embodying this energy, do not demand his vulnerability, you ignite it. The power does not lie in words but in the charged stillness between them, a space where his carefully constructed identity wavers and the deeper man, the unguarded man, begins to emerge. Then comes the presence of the sage, not the gentle teacher but the fierce truth-bearer. She is wisdom without apology, insight without flattery. Many men imagine they want a partner who will soothe their insecurities, but the sage woman offers something far more potent, a reflection that cannot be manipulated. She stands as a lighthouse, and while he may at first recoil from the brightness, he soon recognizes that this illumination is the very thing he has craved. His fear of exposure becomes a craving for clarity, and his desire for her is inseparable from his yearning for self-discovery. Notice how this differs from seduction as a game. You are not playing to win him. You are embodying archetypal truth, and in doing so you invite him to meet his own. It is not about bending yourself to fit his comfort, it is about standing so fully in your own being that his comfort ceases to be the point. The unconscious senses when a woman is rooted in this way, and it responds with a pull that defies logic. He may try to rationalize it, call it fascination, call it obsession, but beneath those words is the simple fact that fear and desire have merged into one current. And so he hovers near, torn between retreat and surrender. Each time he tries to retreat, he finds that the space between you only amplifies the resonance. Each time he attempts to dismiss the feeling, it returns stronger, because it is not merely about you as a person, it is about the archetypal mirror you hold up to his soul. The more he resists, the more the energy intensifies, until resistance itself becomes the very flavor of passion. Here lies the subtle art, you do not chase. You do not explain. He feels the pull long before he understands it, a tide that moves beneath the surface of his conscious mind. Each encounter with her becomes an initiation, not into romance alone but into the labyrinth of his own being. Jung spoke of individuation as the sacred task of uniting the fragmented self, and the woman who embodies this mystery becomes both guide and mirror. Her presence asks of him what few dare to request, to confront the disowned parts of his soul. Fear is the doorway, desire is the key. Within her beats the quiet thunder of the queen archetype. She does not command attention through force, yet every gesture carries the authority of inner sovereignty. She knows her worth without proclamation, and it is this unspoken certainty that unsettles him. In her company he senses the collapse of the old power games. His need to dominate, to predict, to own begins to feel absurd. The queen does not compete for affection, she emanates a gravity that demands respect and invites devotion. His fear of inadequacy sharpens, yet intertwined with it is an intoxicating awe. The very independence that terrifies him becomes the magnet that draws him closer. The queen's gaze is not a challenge but a revelation. It tells him that love is not conquest but recognition. When you, as a woman, stand in this archetype, you do not diminish your light to soothe his uncertainty. You embody a wholeness that refuses to shrink. He may tremble, for he senses that entering your world means surrendering his need for control. But it is precisely that surrender that births desire, a longing to merge not with a possession but with a force greater than either of you. Nearby waits the muse, a subtler yet equally potent presence. She is the whisper of inspiration that awakens dormant dreams. In her, he perceives the possibility of a life more vivid, more courageous. The muse does not cajole or seduce, she simply lives with a vitality that stirs his own. Her laughter carries the scent of forgotten freedom. Her silence opens corridors of imagination he has long abandoned. And though he fears the vulnerability that comes with such awakening, he cannot turn away. The fear becomes a thrill, the trembling a call to creation. Observe how these energies weave together, the queen's sovereignty, the muse's spark, the magician's mystery, the sage's clarity. They are not costumes to be worn but facets of a woman who has embraced her own depth. When you inhabit these archetypes authentically, you invite a man to dance with the full spectrum of his own psyche. His terror of exposure becomes fascination, his instinct to retreat becomes an urgent need to stay. He begins to understand, even if only unconsciously, that desire is not the opposite of fear but its evolution. This is not manipulation. It is the natural alchemy of presence. A woman grounded in her inner archetypes does not chase love, she radiates it. She does not beg for intimacy, she becomes the landscape in which intimacy blossoms. The man who stands before her senses this and is changed. He may fight it, question it, attempt to reason with it, but the current is stronger than logic. In this way, fear softens into passion, not through promises or games but through the timeless dance of shadow and light. Each moment with her becomes a step closer to wholeness, a brush with the infinite that both terrifies and delights. The more he resists, he begins to notice that the space around her carries a different gravity, as if the air itself thickens with meaning. Time stretches when she enters a room, conversation bends toward her silence as much as her words. Jung might call this the numinous, those charged encounters where the unconscious rises to meet the conscious world. For the man who lingers near her, this is no casual attraction. It is a brush with something archetypal, something that demands both reverence and courage. His heartbeat quickens not merely from physical longing but from the sense that his own becoming hangs in the balance. The woman who understands this does not hurry the moment. She has traveled the interior landscapes of her own psyche and knows that haste is the enemy of transformation. Her stillness is not passivity, it is presence distilled. She walks the quiet line between invitation and detachment, allowing his fear to surface like a dark tide without rushing to calm it. In that tension, desire ripens. He senses that if he wishes to remain in her orbit, he must face the shadows he has fled. Consider the archetype of the warrior poet, a fusion of strength and tenderness. Though rarely spoken of, this feminine force radiates a paradox that unravels defenses. She embodies discipline without rigidity, compassion without sentimentality. Her eyes promise both challenge and sanctuary. When a man meets this energy, he cannot hide behind bravado or cynicism. His fear of inadequacy collides with the deeper recognition that he longs to be both protected and undone. Desire ignites not because she offers safety but because she offers truth. The warrior poet does not rescue, she reveals. Her calm gaze exposes the fractures he conceals, and in that exposure he finds a strange liberation. He feels the stir of his own dormant courage, the possibility of standing unmasked. Fear becomes a crucible, and the fire of passion is the forge that tempers him. You, channeling this archetype, do not coax him into vulnerability, you embody a space where vulnerability becomes inevitable. Notice how his body responds before his mind can follow. A subtle lean forward, a breath held a fraction too long, a flicker of eyes that betrays wonder. These are not accidents. They are the unconscious recognizing itself. In your presence, his carefully built persona loosens, and the man beneath, less polished, more alive, steps tentatively into view. His desire is no longer mere attraction, it is the yearning for authenticity that only awakens when confronted by someone who has claimed her own. You remain steady, neither promising nor withholding. This steadiness is the quiet lesson of the Stoics, who knew that true power lies in self-mastery, not control of others. The more you embody this, the more his fear transforms. What once felt like threat becomes invitation, what once sent him running now draws him inescapably nearer. The same pulse that warned him to retreat now urges him to cross the threshold. He begins to see that the passion he feels is not merely for you but for the wholeness you represent. The archetypes you inhabit, queen, magician, sage, muse, warrior poet, are not separate figures but reflections of a single integrated self. They whisper to him of his own potential, of the man he might become if he dares to merge with the fullness of his own shadow. And so his fear, once an iron gate, melts into a door. The doorway he crosses is not a place but a state of being, an inner chamber where every breath tastes of revelation. He does not fully understand why the sound of her voice reverberates through his chest like a forgotten hymn, only that it awakens something ancient and ungovernable. The closer he draws, the more he senses that this encounter is less about romance and more about destiny. Jung described such moments as synchronicities, events that align with the hidden patterns of the soul. In her presence, coincidence feels like fate, and fear begins to shimmer with the light of inevitability. She remains composed, an embodiment of wholeness that neither clings nor retreats. This calm is not indifference, it is mastery. Having met her own darkness and made peace with it, she no longer fears the turbulence of another. Her energy speaks without words, I will not lose myself to possess you, and I will not shrink to soothe you. This is the secret language of the fully individuated woman, and it unsettles him more than any plea or pursuit could. His heart, once armored, begins to beat with a vulnerable rhythm, drawn by the invitation to match her steadiness with his own. Here, the archetype of the alchemist comes alive. She transforms the heavy metal of his fear into the gold of awakening, not by coaxing or commanding, but by simply existing as proof that integration is possible. The alchemist knows that love is not a rescue mission but a revelation. She does not attempt to heal him, she shows him that he is already capable of healing himself. And in that recognition, his desire deepens. It is no longer a hunger to possess but a longing to grow. The dance between them becomes a quiet storm. He feels the tension of wanting to merge and the terror of losing the self he has always known. Yet he also senses that this is the very threshold his life has been moving toward, the place where the false layers fall away. Each glance, each pause, becomes a silent lesson in presence. Her serenity is a mirror, and in it he confronts both the frailty and the grandeur of his own spirit. You, as the woman who holds this energy, understand that the true art lies in non-attachment. You allow his desire without gripping it, welcome his vulnerability without claiming it. This detachment is not coldness, it is freedom, the freedom that invites real intimacy rather than control. Your quiet confidence tells him that he is free to come closer and equally free to leave, and paradoxically, that freedom is what binds him. His fear of entrapment dissolves, replaced by the realization that love can be a meeting of equals, not a cage. Gradually, the polarity of fear and desire ceases to exist. What remains is a steady flame that needs no oxygen of drama to burn. He discovers that the passion he once chased in fleeting encounters now lives in the stillness you embody. It is not a fire that consumes but a light that guides. In this illumination, he recognizes his own reflection, stronger, clearer, whole. For you, the journey culminates not in his surrender but in your own unshakable presence. You have become the queen who chooses, the magician who reveals, the sage who knows, the muse who inspires, the warrior poet who protects, and the alchemist who transforms. You are all of them and more, a living testament to the power of integration. His awakening is merely a ripple of the ocean you have claimed within. And so the final truth emerges: the woman